What's up, guys? Big day for Challenger. So what we have here is a set of fully adjustable cartridges for the front of the OEM forks. These work on all the Challengers and Pursuits, as well as the new Sport Chief. When you buy the kit, it comes with 2 quarts of oil that you need, and obviously 2 cartridges. You need to know your weight, ballpark. I think the range is 175 to 250 or something like that for these springs, and then obviously the bigger are the different spring rates. So they build these to order when you order them. What you will need to supply is this crush gasket. There's a part number 1500798. You don't have to change it if you don't want to. It's kind of like the oil drain plugs. It's just a crush gasket. You can also anneal the ones that are the old ones, but they're $5 a piece. Easy insurance, because I don't want to take these forks back apart. So you can get these at your local dealer or order them online. Next, obviously, you want a service manual, because you shouldn't be doing any of this without the proper torques that service manual provides. The instructions that come with this kit are for a Harley, so we're not going to use them. Here are some of the base stuff that Kyle has told me to do. So your compression cartridge goes on the left. And then once your oil level, sag desired, and then use your base settings. So with these cartridges, as you can see, they're adjustable in there. We have compression and rebound. So similar to the Ohlins on the FTRs, one does compression, one does rebound, instead of having 2 settings in each one. I opted for the gold caps. You can get black ones if you want. So I have the 1-inch cap, over cap option selected. So these are 2-inch lifted cartridges plus the 1-inch. If you have any questions about that, you can email Kyle and he'll explain it more better than I can. Big Bear here next year, hopefully at the beginning of next year, is working with Ohlins and Kyle to develop a rear shock that's fully adjustable for the Challenger. There are a couple options out there right now, but none are completely adjustable, and they're not really ideal for street riding. So let's dive into it. Obviously, I already had the 2-inch lift installed. There are the caps there. So what I'm going to do is, since the cap goes all the way down through, I'm going to loosen those upper clamp bolts and then put my wrench on here and just loosen the cap there. Do that on both sides. Obviously take the front tire and everything off, and then I'll drop the forks out. That way it makes it easier for that clamp to come off the top, or not to clamp, the cap to come off the top, with me doing this by myself. And I'm also going to attempt to take those cartridges out of this by myself, since my wife isn't here. So we're going to see how that works. If you have any questions about installing the spacers, I have a video on that. I'll put the link in the description for if you just want to do the other lift. So let's get to it. After spending way too much time searching through my garage to find this, I forgot we also have this, I believe it's Max Track? Can't remember the name. Suspension tool. This, for the OEM stuff, will go up here, and then you'll slide the spring down so you can get to this jam nut. Again, I'll put a link in the description for this, because you do need this tool to disassemble the forks, whether you have the caps on or the OEM caps. And then again, I have the video explaining this that I'll stick in the description from when I did the original lift kit on this. Okay, so before we get started here, I also wanted to take this apart and show you. So what you're going to do is, so these already come with this preload, or not preload, rebound screw setting all the way out, and then you don't do anything with this because it's already all the way out, and this just unscrews off the top of here. And you have your cap here, and your spring, and then your rod in the middle. Alright, tires off. I don't need to show you how it was happening, because there's just a ton of videos online, and it's pretty idiot proof. One thing that does make this nice, it's a nice ratcheting 14mm socket for the axle, and it makes it a lot easier to torque. And then I always like to zip tie my calipers up here, because I don't like them dangling by that. So my idea to loosen this cap up here Didn't work because I can't get a wrench in there, and I'm not taking my handlebars off to get a socket in there. So what I did was, before I took the tire and everything off, I was still kind of sitting on the ground. I went ahead and loosened all my clamp bolts, took the zip ties off this. Obviously, if you have a Dark Horse or one of the other variants with the light up headrest on it, Defender, you either have to take the whole cowling off to unplug it from up in here, or what I did last time I had these forks off, I kind of took the fender, took the tire off, took the fender off of the bolts, and kind of slid it back a little bit, and then strapped it back to these bars. I'm pretty sure that's how I did it, and I just left it sit there already hooked up. So you can do it without undoing that. It would be nice if there was a connector on the wire like right up in here, but there's not. So we're gonna work on getting the forks out of the bike. For fork removal, what I found works best is to take a nice flathead screwdriver and stick it back in this slot between your Allen keys, and then just twist that, and then allow this to slowly twist out. Generally, you don't have to do it to the top and bottom one. It's usually just one or the other. Will get you just enough to sit there and twist this out. So let's get these caps off and fluid drained. So what I did was, since I'm by myself, I just took impact quick and just zipped it really fast while holding that, and the caps always came off. So just gonna dump them upside down, let all this cold fluid slowly leak out, and then we will start taking these back apart. So that tool that I showed you actually goes in these holes here, and then we push this down, and there's a nut in here that we have to hold on to, and then screw the cap back off that nut, and everything comes out. And then under here we have an 8mm Allen that these pressure washers go back on. All right, so this isn't the ideal solution, but I couldn't get this off by myself, and I forgot this old trick from back in the day. Soft jaws in your vise, put a ratchet strap around it, connect it to here, ratchet her down, and she'll slowly come down, and that reveals this nut right here. So the tool comes with this little guy here, so you slide this guy in the nut, keeps the spring down below the nut, and then you hold the nut and then take this off. And then that way you can take a little bit of tension off this thing here. When you go to let it go, be very careful, because this thing will go and it'll shoot up quite far. So what I'll do is I'll hold it best I can on this side, since the ratcheting side is on this one, and slowly let her go without everything shooting through my roof. These springs seem a little bit easier, so this should be a little bit easier to put back together without having to do this. Obviously, if you have two people, you can just set this on the floor, have somebody push down on this, you slide this in, and bing, bang, boom, you're done. But we're all alone here. Trying to think if there's anything else to worry about to note here. I don't think there is. So let's get this cap off and make sure I don't shoot it through my ceiling. Okay, so I didn't die. It didn't go as smoothly as I hoped. I shot this little guy back in that corner, and the spring kind of just went bloop, right back over. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take, I believe it's an 8mm, and we go in from the bottom there, and we just use an impact wrench and quick zip that out, and then this whole internal piece will come out of here. So all the damn tools that I own, I do not have a long 8mm Allen because it doesn't want to go. So what I had to do was, luckily I had some cheap Allen keys laying around, so I just cut the tip off, slid her up in there, put a socket on, and zipped her out. So I did try with the T-handle, and because it was so slow, it wasn't breaking the nut loose really fast in here, and it was just spinning the whole cartridge. So do yourself a favor and get you some long 8mm Allens, or just make a tool like I did. So now that that nut's out, the cartridge will just slide out. Okay, so I also to say to make sure that these threads are perfectly clean, and we have our new crush washer on it. So with these threads being clean, if we just quick zip this up in to here, we should be golden, because there's really no way to hold this and keep this from spinning inside the tube, which is super fun. So now that that's in, we're gonna shoot this in, and then we're gonna fill this with fluid and get our 150 millimeter air gap from here to here. So what I'll do is I'll fill it up a little bit, we'll cycle this in and out to make sure that this gets full of fluid, and then we just do a reverse procedure of what we just did. And my wife is here, so this one I don't have to use the sketching method. I'll actually just compress this spring and then have her unscrew the cap. Alrighty, so like I said before, we take that 8mm and just zip it in real fast. Don't have your impact wrench on 4, put it on a slow setting and just quick zip it in really fast. So anyway, so what you do is fill it with your oil, and then you take small increments and just work the air out, and then you can do full strokes. In the manual, it does have procedure here. You can kind of just hold it, but it's the same as your manual procedure. There's nothing special with this except the fluid level. So the OEM fluid level was 103 millimeters. We want 150. So the easy way to do that is just have one of these cheap Harbor Freight things. Take a flashlight, stick this down in it, and see when this touches the fluid level. A reminder, you want the spring and this spacer out. If the spacer's out, then your fluid level is going to be wrong, and it's actually less than 150 millimeters with this installed. So all the fluid worked out of it. I don't know if you can really see down there, but the fluid level is obviously about right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work this a little bit more, and I'm just going to let it sit for a while, and I'm going to start on the other side. Remember which compression and rebound goes where. Compression cartridge on the left. So we're going to start on the left, which is this one. Alright, so this one's a little bit more difficult to bleed. You can still hear some air bubbles coming in there. So just in and out, small increments. So while I was letting this sit for a little bit, went ahead and put the cap on. So you'll obviously throw your spacer back in, and then spring, and then this hat here, and then your cap. So basically what you do is you hold the spring down a little bit so you can get your 19mm wrench on this nut, and then just screw that down tight. And then once this is tight on there, obviously you bring this back up and screw this down on there, and then that fork leg is done. Alright, so cap's on. I don't have a socket in this particular size, so it's a size Nepex. You can hold the fork with a strap wrench and then just snug it down with this. So before you put the cap on, remember we want to back out our internal setting and then our preload setting all the way out, and then when you install it, to break it free, use a 14mm socket, put it down in there, and then I just put the Nipex back on here and cranked it down 12 full revolutions. And then the inner adjustment, I screwed it in 12 clicks. So your rebound has 17 full clicks of adjustment. So if I want it harder, I can go 5 more down. If I want it softer, I can go 7 or 12 back the other way. For your compression, you actually have 27 clicks. They still recommend 12 clicks on both of them. Remember, from full out, 12 clicks down. The further down you go, further clockwise you go, going down, makes it firmer. And then obviously 12 turns of preload to get the sag. So that's just a starting point. When you're adjusting your suspension, I always write down exactly where the settings are, and then I'll take a little tool with me when I go riding, and I'll just do one click or the other depending on how road mannerisms, how it's acting. It took me a little while to get used to get these dialed in. Same thing with that stuff. But yeah, one click at a time. It's amazing what just 1 or 2 clicks will actually do to improve the ride. So we're going to start with this base setting here, and then I'm going to keep bleeding the air out of that, and then both forks are going to go on. So far, I've been into this for about 2 hours now to get to this point. That's with me playing with my GoPro and talking to Kyle and stuff through everything. So it's pretty straightforward installation, so not that big of a deal. And we are on. So obviously this side was exactly the same as the other side. No drama there. So when these go up in the trees, you want them to sit nice and flush, and you can still get your tool down in there to adjust your preload. So I will take this socket with me and then a little Allen key to play with my clicks and my preload to get my sag right. Just want to go riding. These damn GoPro batteries keep dying on me. So this is the line where it sat when it was stock, obviously. So yeah, just push down a little bit. Most of the length comes from the cartridges and pushing the tubes down in more. So I'll get the wheel back on and get her on the ground. It's about 30 degrees right now. Luckily I haven't had to turn the heater on yet, but we will not be riding it tonight, and it's calling for thunderstorms tomorrow, so hopefully that pushes off so I can get a little bit of a rip in tomorrow. But let's get the tire and the fender back on. Alright, and we are done. It's 6:30. I started at 3, so 3.5 hour job. Not too bad. So I did start out at 12 cranks in on the preload. When I sat on it, it was kind of like a rock. So I just kept backing it off until I got about 1.5 inches of sag, like they recommend. So that'll be my starting point. I'm 210 pounds, and I want to say that we're at 7 turns in right now. So I backed it out from 12 to 7, equally on both sides, and that's what I get. So if I'm getting too much dive or whatever when I'm sitting there and riding, then I'll play with that. Like I said, I'll take the tools with me on my next ride and adjust as needed. But overall, pretty simple install. Nice gold caps down there so people know that you have something special. It does sit pretty much exactly the same as it did before, maybe a little bit less leaned over. But as you can see from the beginning of the video, the amount of exposed fork tube is a little bit more. Everything is torqued down. I'm not going to give you torques because I suggest that you buy the owner's manual so you can find the torques for this stuff, triple clamps, and everything else. Because one should always have, or not owner's manual, service manual, sorry. But overall, pretty happy with the install. Now to clean up my toolbox. And the only special tool you need is this $25 suspension tool. Nothing else here is out of the ordinary. Torque wrench, just your standard sockets. So, and that 8mm Allen that I had to cut. So anybody can do this job with basic hand tools. It's pretty simple, pretty easy. So don't be afraid to tackle it. Thanks for watching. apologize, but as you can see, every time I went to give it some gas, the traction control just kept kicking on and just kept sliding the back tire out. So that road was not very good. So I did a couple full on throttle, slam on the brakes, complete stop. That's where it got me. The settings actually, for being baseline settings, are actually pretty good. The stock suspension on these is perfectly fine and adequate. This is just makes it a whole nother level of better. It's similar to like putting coilovers on your car. I'm very happy with it. There's no more, when you get on the brakes coming into a turn, there's no more, the bike doesn't want to push through it. It doesn't nosedive as bad. It's a lot more controlled too. As soon as you hit a bump, it just kind of jolts really fast. It's not rougher, it's just more controlled. It's kind of hard to explain. Very happy with it. I can't wait for it to be warmer or not wet to be able to actually push this a little bit more. Really can't wait for the rear shock to come in to be a complete package. But the front end feels very similar to one of my FTRs. I'm gonna wait to start playing with the settings until I can actually push it a little bit more. Sag, I think, is up pretty much perfect. I'm just gonna let that go. So the preload is fine. Just gonna play with the compression and dampening a little bit more when I have more time and the weather's better to actually push this a little bit more. Don't forget, Kyle is the main man for all of this. He's the reason for most of this performance parts. He's the one that started this years ago because nobody really wanted anything performance to do with Indian. I mean, he's the one that designed the original LP6 kit for it. He's the one that worked with Big Bear to get these forks for it. He's the one that worked with Bare Knuckle Performance to get the fork spacers and the shock bracket for the 2-inch lift initially. He worked with the carbon fiber people, everything. So big shout out to Kyle for everything he's done for the Indian Challenger platform. If you want anything, pretty much everything on this bike, you can actually buy off of his website. You can get all the carbon fiber parts off his website. You can get the seats. You can get the bracket for back there. All the suspension parts, these fork cartridges, these Performance C3 floorboards, the toast exhaust, the FTR carbon fiber front brackets to be able to mount the carbon fiber fender off an FTR. He has wheels, brake discs. I'm pretty sure he sells the windshields too. And then his Barnstorm T-bar kits, which I don't have yet. But big shout out to him. Big shout out to Big Bear Performance for making this kit for this Challenger. I'll do an update video in a couple months after I put some more miles on this to see how it goes. Thanks for watching, guys.